Welcome to the studio. I'm Mike.
I'm Jessica.
And we wanted to talk about starting business. The reason is because we got a lot of really positive feedback from a piece that we did a few days ago about starting a business, being an entrepreneur, and probably more the mental and emotional side of that. As I mentioned in that piece, there are a lot of obviously practical nuts and bolts considerations when you're starting a business. We wanted to talk about a few of those, and we just happen to have several of them written here on the board. So we're going to talk about just a few of them over the course of just a few minutes. This is barely scratching the surface of a very, very big conversation, but we have spent so much time the last several months working with entrepreneurs, being entrepreneurs ourselves, working with people who are starting and building businesses, that we want to share some thoughts on this. Again, there's a lot of ways to dive into this, ways to go about it. We want to talk about just a few things this morning, and if we get good feedback on this, we'll do more of this going forward, because again, we think it's important to share information that people out there want to see. So there's a lot of things to consider when you're starting a business. One of the first and most obvious is your market. Do you know where people or businesses who will buy what you're selling are? Can you find those people? Do you have anything else to add about that? It's pretty simple concept.
Yeah, and sometimes it's great to sit down with someone who specializes in helping you define your market
Right.
and your customer base. So it's really good to have that definition at the beginning.
Right. There's a lot of things that both go into that and come out of that in terms of cash flow and financing and forecasts. We're not going to go into all that, but again, just knowing your market is a necessity. Another thing to think about, again, there's a lot of things here, but we thought it'd be interesting to kind of jump to the end and talk for a minute about something that folks who are starting business don't often think about, and that's exit strategy. If you're going to get into a box, have you thought about how you're going to eventually get out of that box? I know you got some stuff to say about this.
Yeah, so Mike and I work a lot with clients that are exiting, and it's really the first time that they're thinking about, hey, what am I going to do to get out of this business? Am I going to pass it down to the next generation? Am I going to sell it? And what goes into selling my business? And so, a lot of times we're working with people that are starting businesses, and that is the very last thing on their mind is, well, how am I going to sell it? I'm only focused on how I'm going to start it. And like Mike said, it's really good to think about that on the front end, because the way that you set it up at the beginning really, has a lot to do with the way that you're going to get out of this business at the end.
Right. Which actually is probably a pretty good segue into the other big thing that we wanted to talk about this morning, and that is entity choice and structure. And frankly, this is an area where we spend a lot of our time living, because this has a lot to do with tax law, legal liability, succession, and exit strategy. So there are a lot of options around this, and this is where we could go crazy with spreadsheets and numbers, and we will, but not today. You got something else to say about this, right?
Yeah, and a lot of our conversations early on, we're discussing tax payments, estimate tax payments, that a lot of people that are coming out of a salary job and starting a new business for the very first time, this is news to them, and they don't really understand how that works.
Right.
And the different entity types, of course, impact your taxes in different ways.
Right.
And not just income taxes, we're also payroll tax as a consideration. And so, we do spend a lot of time sort of counseling and talking about the different entity types.
Right.
Before one is selected.
Right. So if you are starting a business and you're talking to an advisor and they start asking you questions and making recommendations using terms like S corporation versus C corporation and LLCs and partnerships, I know your eyes may want to glaze over if that's not something that you've worked with a lot in the past, but it's important. So I would pay attention to that. Talk to a good advisor to help pick the right structure for you, and that does feed into and touch on a lot of other things, some of which we've talked about this morning, some we haven't. You mentioned payroll, but staffing is another big thing. How you bring on staff, how you're going to treat staff, a number of other things we've got here: facilities and equipment, just your overall strategy, which also has a lot to do with market. And we would need a much bigger board for all of the other things that you would need to keep in mind. But we want to do a short video and touch on just a few of these and just mention these are some considerations. These are some things to be thinking of when you're starting a business. Certainly not anything. The overarching message here, which we say over and over again, is talk to a good advisor if you're starting or have started and are working on growing a business. What am I leaving out?
Well, we hope this was helpful, and we will be doing more of these.
Absolutely.
You know, we're trying to do videos, relevant videos that people are interested in, and there was a lot of interest in our post on this topic, so we hope this was very helpful.
Okay, so that is it for today. Again, we hope that, as Jessica said, you found this helpful. We value and solicit your feedback as well as your likes and shares on social media. So visit us, give us your feedback, and we appreciate everybody's support. Have a great day.